Welcome back to Mama Mystery. I am your host, Kelly, and this is the weekly docket where I recap top headlines in true crime for the week. We have got a lot to unpack, including new evidence in the Kyren Lacy case, a Florida boy who faked his own abduction, a teen charged in a deadly hit and run in Cranford, New Jersey, and I'm going to tell you what I know so far about Laken Snelling, the Kentucky college student who gave birth in her off-campus bedroom and then put her baby's body in a trash bag, and then what we know so far about the missing Indiana mom, Britney Gard, who was just found alive yesterday after missing for over a week. I cannot wait to hear your thoughts on the last one because something is fishy. I'm just going to say it. Something is fishy about it. I'm getting some Sherry Papini vibes, and I very much hope that I am wrong, but something is just off about it. So without further ado, let's get started. I've got my coffee from Hazel's here, local in St. Joe. It's very yummy. It's like a pumpkin chai, something or other. I don't know, but it's very good. So let's dive in. Kyren Pierce Lacy was born on December 27th of 2000 and grew up in the tight-knit Bayou community of TWD, Louisiana. He was the eldest child of Kenny and Candace Lacy and the big brother to Jaden and Liam. His parents ran a local construction business and their home doubled as a gathering place for cousins and neighborhood kids. Kyren's father introduced him to sports at an early age, and he quickly became a standout athlete. At Thibodaux High School, he played both football and basketball, earning a reputation as a competitor who thrived under pressure. Kyren helped the school's basketball team win Louisiana's Class 5A championship and starred on the football field as a wide receiver. By his senior year in 2019, he recorded 54 receptions for 864 yards and 18 touchdowns, performance numbers that ranked him among the top receiving prospects in Louisiana. His big playability and leadership made him a hometown hero before he was ever even on a college team. And despite scholarship offers from programs such as Houston, Louisiana Monroe, and Virginia, Kyren committed to the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, the Ragin' Cajuns, in December of 2019. He saw Lafayette as a place where he could develop immediately and also stay close to his family. As a three-star recruit, he entered the 2020 season with modest expectations but quickly exceeded them. Playing as a true freshman in 2020, he appeared in 11 games and caught 28 passes for 364 yards and 4 touchdowns. He followed that up with 22 catches for 304 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2021, showing an ability to win contested catches downfield despite being the defense's primary focus. In total, he finished his 2-year stint with the Ragin' Cajuns with roughly 50 receptions for 668 yards and 10 touchdowns. And these are numbers that put him on NFL scouts' radars. Eager for a bigger challenge, Kyren entered the transfer portal after the 2021 season and joined the LSU Tigers in 2022. The move was both a homecoming. LSU's campus sits just a short drive from Thibodaux, and a leap into the national spotlight. A lot of people know LSU's football team is a pretty big program. During his first year in Baton Rouge, he played in 14 games, mostly as a rotational receiver, and logged 24 catches for 268 yards. He broke out in the 2023 season, serving as the third option behind Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. He started 10 out of 13 games and produced 30 receptions for 558 yards and 7 touchdowns. His combination of size at 6'2" and his leaping ability made him a reliable red zone target, and he came down with several acrobatic catches that landed on highlight reels nationwide. Coaches praised his work ethic and his team-first attitude, and he quickly became a favorite in the locker room. Off the field, he served as a mentor to younger teammates and often returned to Thibodaux to speak with local high school athletes and mentor some of their students. Heading into 2024, Kyren was LSU's #1 receiver and one of the most experienced targets on the roster. He embraced the role, catching 58 passes for 866 yards, tying for the SEC lead with 9 touchdown receptions and earning second-team All-SEC honors. He also scored a pivotal 25-yard touchdown in an overtime win against Ole Miss, showcasing his knack for making clutch plays.
Pump fake, Nussmeier goes back shoulder, touchdown! 'Kyren Lacy, and LSU wins!
With 163 career receptions for more than 2,300 yards and over 26 touchdowns, he announced his intention to enter the 2025 NFL Draft on December 19th of 2024. Draft analysts projected him to be a mid-round pick who could contribute immediately on special teams and eventually develop into an NFL starter. Friends and coaches described him as an affable, family-oriented young man with a contagious energy and a love for the game. By all accounts, he had a really bright future, potentially becoming an all-star in the NFL. And yet, 2 days prior to that announcement that he was going to be applying for the draft on December 17th, a decision he made derailed everything. While he was driving near Chackbay, Louisiana, Kyren passed several vehicles on a 2-lane highway. Now, according to LSP, or Louisiana State Police, he crossed into oncoming traffic, and investigators later claimed that his reckless operation of his green Charger forced a northbound pickup driver to slam on their brakes, which triggered a chain reaction that sent another car across the center line and into 78-year-old Herman Hall's vehicle. So, in other words, Kyren was passing multiple vehicles in a non-passing lane, double yellow lines, and he was driving pretty fast in order to pass these cars. If you're watching this episode in its video format, I'm going to be overlaying the surveillance footage that was captured from the day that this all happened, and you can see that he is driving pretty fast in order to pass 4 cars. There was 2 small SUVs, an 18-wheeler, and a truck. And then just as he was veering back into his lane that he was supposed to be in, someone that was in the lane of opposing traffic reacted to seeing him approaching them at such a high rate of speed head on that one of the cars veered to the right and off the road, and then the car behind them veered to the left into the other oncoming traffic. That vehicle that swerved to the left into oncoming traffic struck another Kia Sorento driven by Mr. Hall, and as we know, that collision was fatal. Troopers said Kyren drove away and then called a personal injury attorney less than 10 minutes later, and Mr. Hall died from his injuries. Kyren was charged with negligent homicide and felony hit and run. He turned himself in on January 12th of 2025, posted bail, and then returned home, insisting that he had not caused the crash. From the start, Kyren Lacy's attorney, Matthew Ory, framed the case as a tragic misunderstanding. In a February statement, he argued that Kyren Lacy briefly passed other vehicles but safely re-entered his lane without incident, and that the fatal collision happened directly in front of him when another driver crossed the center line. So his attorney stressed that Kyren's car never struck any vehicle and that he cautiously drove around the wreck only when it was safe. There was no alcohol involved, and Lacy never returned to the scene because why would he? He didn't believe that he had caused the crash. So the young receiver tried to resume normal life, sharing graduation photos, training for the draft, and hoping that a grand jury would vindicate him. But the accusations continued to hang over him. Behind the scenes, the case's emotional toll mounted, and Kyren faced public scrutiny and saw his NFL invitation revoked. And his mental health from there just reportedly deteriorated. He spoke with therapists and leaned on family and friends, yet the pressure did not ease. And on April 8th of 2025, 2 days before a grand jury hearing, he took his own life. His death stunned the LSU community and left unanswered questions about the crash and the investigation. In the months after his death, Ory did not stop. He continued to investigate and do right by Kyren, and earlier this month, he actually sat down with HTV 10 and released surveillance and police body cam videos. The footage, he says, showed that Lacy's car was behind, not in front of, the vehicles that were involved in the wreck. And the report he cited from the DA's office concluded that the evidence does not support that Kyren Lacy should have known his actions were the cause of the crash that happened approximately 72 yards in front of him. Louisiana State Police released an investigative briefing video on October 7th in response to Michael Ory presenting his video. And this video was asserting that all the evidence still supports the conclusion that Kyren Lacy's reckless operation separation triggered the chain of events, and noting that he called an attorney shortly after the crash, indicating that he may be implying anyway that he probably knew that he had done something wrong and caused this chain reaction. Attorney General Liz Murrill maintained that the case would have gone to a grand jury even though the new evidence appeared to show Lacy returning to his lane. The state police's response only amplified calls for accountability and posted an 11-minute video to YouTube going over in detail what exactly happened, including body cam footage from when officers arrived on the scene. Here is the body cam footage from after the accident, and you hear eyewitnesses recall their account of what happened.
What I'm saying is a natural instinct to turn, and then she had no hit head on.
Did you see a green Charger flying that way? A green Charger that going that way?
There was a green Charger.
That's a green Charger that
caused all this.
SRT8, he caused all of it. He went to pass the cars way back there, sir.
The green Charger collided with these cars?
He went right between.
He went around that truck, okay?
He was passing up with her right now.
And she had no choice. She hits the pole, she gets this.
How are they injuries? What
She
are they?
got a broken ankle.
Them two are complaining back injuries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I was on the
So
phone when I
two
was
back
with her
injuries,
earlier.
one broken ankle?
Yeah.
I'm not. I just told him not to move. You know what I'm saying? Me doing my part.
You said something about a green Charger. Who told you something about a green Charger?
I'm down 18 wheel right there, sir.
Okay, so you saw it?
I saw it.
What did you see happen?
He went to pass him. I say when he went to pass me these cars back there. He was back there around around the curve. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Hey, he come down. Right. When he come down, I got Mr. He had his brother that he was taken to the emergency room, to the hospital or something like that, chemo or something like that. But I got his number also to verify this, because he was a car that was in front of her. When that green Charger came, he went caused this whole big traffic, so everybody went to hitting brakes because the Charger, I thought he hit the gold truck head on. So he jammed on brakes. She was coming down. They was going that way. When I saw...
Which way was the Charger going? The Charger
going this way.
Charger's going this way, okay.
She was coming this way.
Okay.
They was going this way also. Mr. jammed on brakes. She went to dodge Mr. And that's when she came on.
I was watching. I was by the gas
hit him, on the left side. She come over and hit him.
Viewed through a true crime lens, the Kyren Lacy case is both heartbreaking and infuriating. I don't believe that Kyren ever acted in malice. I do believe that mistakes were made, like driving at a high rate of speed to pass multiple vehicles in a no passing zone. But I also believe that the woman who swerved into oncoming traffic made a crucial mistake also. So at the end of the day, this story is really heartbreaking and there's no winners here. There have been 2 deaths that, it never needed to happen. And my heart really goes out to Kyren's family and to the family of Herman Hall. Next, what began as a harrowing missing persons case, a teenager apparently abducted and in peril, turned into a startling saga of deception and self-injury. 17-year-old Caden Rex Spite went missing in Marion County, Florida on September 25th. That afternoon, he texted his mother claiming that he had been shot and abducted by 4 men described as 4 Hispanic men in a light-colored van. An Amber Alert was issued Thursday evening after reports of a shooting near Dunellen off of Highway 484. Caden's pickup truck was found abandoned at that location with his cell phone left behind and evidence of a single gunshot nearby. Authorities initially feared that the teen was in danger, so overnight a massive search unfolded. Marion County deputies, detectives, K-9 units, helicopters, and mounted units, and even concerned volunteers from the community scoured the area through the night. Multiple state and federal agencies assisted. However, early red flags in the evidence cast doubt on the abduction story, and some witnesses' accounts contradicted the teen's claims. By the next day, investigators had found no indication of a kidnapping or assailants at the scene. The next day, by late morning, authorities publicly stated that Caden's initial claims were unfounded, and by around noon on Friday, Caden was located safe in Williston, a town about 20 miles away in Levy County. He emerged from hiding with a gunshot wound to his leg and was found by local residents on a roadway. The wound was self-inflicted. Caden had shot himself shortly before coming out of hiding. apparently to make his kidnapping tale more convincing. He was taken into custody for medical treatment, but notably no kidnappers were with him. Following Monday, so September 29th, Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods released an official update via a Facebook video statement labeling the case as an elaborate hoax, and key details from the investigation were then made public. The Amber Alert was formally canceled, and attention turned to how and why Kyren staged this incident. Surveillance footage and receipts showed that just hours before his disappearance, Kyren bought a black bicycle, a camping tent, a sleeping bag, and other camping supplies at a local Walmart in Ocala. Authorities later released images of Kyren at the store buying a bicycle and gear. So if you're watching this episode on YouTube or Patreon, I will put the images on the screen for you. Now, these purchases obviously indicated premeditation, and authorities confirmed that Kyren simply left the area on a bicycle he'd purchased earlier in the day, rather than being abducted. From the evidence, authorities believe that on September 25th, Kyren abandoned his truck in Dunellen and then rode off on the bicycle toward Williston. Now, Williston is roughly 20 miles away from the truck's location, a distance that he could cover in a few hours. All Thursday night, while police and volunteers were frantically searching for him, Kyren simply rode away towards Williston while everyone else, including his family, were left to think the worst. As the net closed in, Kyren took an extreme step to bolster his kidnapping ruse, and Sheriff Woods said that Kyren, who had a handgun with him since the beginning, chose to shoot himself in the leg, causing a non-life-threatening injury just before he reappeared on Friday. So around Friday at noon, Kyren limped out to a roadway in the Williston area and was located by citizens who then called 911. He was taken to a hospital with the leg wound. In fact, he still had the handgun in his possession when he was found. At this stage, Kyren Spite has not been arrested or formally charged, but Sheriff Woods has made it clear that charges are not off the table. The case remains under review as investigators compile evidence to present to prosecutors. There are several avenues being considered here. Filing a false police report or false information about a crime is against the law in Florida. In fact, in Florida, knowingly giving false information to law enforcement about the commission of a crime, especially a violent felony like kidnapping, can lead to criminal charges, including a potential felony. Sheriff Woods also said his office is still calculating the cost that went into the search for Kyren, indicating that they may be seeking restitution at the very least. As of the latest update, detectives have a lot of unanswered questions for Kyren Spite, but since the family has invoked his right not to speak with police, the motive and full story remain a mystery. Next, on a late afternoon in the small town of Cranford, New Jersey, two best friends, 17-year-olds Maria Niotis and Isabella Salas, hopped on an e-bike for an easy ride down Burnside Avenue. According to court records, a black 2021 Jeep Compass came up behind them at more than 70 miles per hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. The SUV struck the e-bike, lodging it into the engine block, and then the driver ran off, leaving the wrecked vehicle behind. Maria and Isabella were rushed to a local hospital but died from their injuries. Residents who heard the crash later told reporters about the frantic moments of hearing sirens and seeing the abandoned Jeep. The victims' families and friends have since painted a picture of two vibrant young women who had their whole lives ahead of them. Maria's mother, Fula Niotis, called her daughter her best friend, her sunshine, and said that she had a passion for music, makeup, and helping people see their own beauty. Both families have spoken about the emptiness that the girls' deaths have left at their home and in the community. Neighbors and classmates built a memorial alongside Burnside Avenue and gathered for vigils describing Isabella and Maria as kind, charismatic, and inseparable. The suspect is Vincent Bataloro, who is also 17 and from the nearby town of Garwood. Now, police said Bataloro ditched the SUV around the corner after the crash and initially fled. He was questioned and released the night of the crash, then arrested 2 days later and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors allege that he deliberately hit the girls. He also received at least 15 traffic citations for speeding, reckless driving, and driving without a license. Vincent's connection to the victims appears to go beyond just the crash. Family members and friends claim that he had actually been stalking Maria for months and that the Niotis family repeatedly warned authorities. Because both parties were minors, though, restraining orders were not available under New Jersey law, forcing the family to pursue complaints through the juvenile system. In May, Vincent live-streamed on YouTube and complained about allegations of distributing explicit material, telling his viewers that he had been bullied, ridiculed, and stuff over false allegations. Said, quote, that there's more to this story. In a subsequent live stream on September 23rd, less than a week before the crash, he vowed vengeance against a girl who had accused him of sending pornographic material. NJ.com and other outlets reported that he had pranked the Niotis family by sending pepperoni pizzas to their home and mocked Maria in his streams. These details, combined with Vincent's conduct after the crash, have fueled public anger. On September 30th, the day after the crash, a young man believed to be Vincent streamed a gaming session and referred to the deaths as a hit and run. He told viewers he wasn't allowed to talk about the incident, but insisted that there was more to the story.
I've been through way too much. I'm a nice kid. I'm 17 years old with a good family by my side. And these allegations that have been ruining everything is a shame. In a neighboring town, unfortunately, 2 girls were killed in a hit-and-run crash. Now, there has been a lot of misinformation going on over the internet. But I will say this. I wish my sincerest condolences to those 2 girls lost in that tragic accident. Okay? It is an absolute unfortunate situation, and there's more to the story that you're not getting. Making threats against my family will not be tolerated. My cousin has received hateful messages over social media about this whole spiel, and he's had to unfollow me on everything because of this whole drama. I have built a great following on TikTok with 39,000 followers that I have grown since 2020, and I want to thank each and every single one of y'all. I love you all to absolute death. This will be in the hands of Jesus. Everything will be okay. I've been bullied, ridiculed, and stuff over false allegations, okay? Over this whole thing about things that have happened in the past. I really think you all should be a lot nicer to each other. If anything happens, I'm going to give you all some advice, all right? If you get bullied and ridiculed in school about, stuff that people hate you, I would tell your counselor immediately. And, before the gets out of hand, you got to address all these things, because I'll tell you what, the amount of bullying that I've been put through in the past has been absolutely absurd.
This brazenness, along with the decision to initially handle the case in juvenile court, prompted calls from residents to try Vincent as an adult and to reform stalking and restraining order laws for minors. So a petition launched after the crash, and it urges lawmakers to lower the legal age for protective orders to 15. And I'm going to put a link to that petition in the show notes, and I would urge you to go and sign it. I signed it. I absolutely think that this needs to be done. I am slowly becoming this big advocate for kids and social media, and how I don't believe that kids belong on social media, nor should they be on it or have access to it. And the younger these kids are exposed to avenues like social media, the more risky these types of situations and behavior becomes. And so I absolutely think that there should be laws in place that allow for restraining orders to be in effect, even if it is a minor, technically a minor, that is, making these offenses. The case has also drawn attention because Vincent is related to Christopher Badaloro, the police chief of neighboring Westfield. And in a public statement, the chief said that the suspect is not an immediate family member, but a relative, and he stressed that he does not condone, defend, or excuse the actions that caused the deaths. He added that he had known Isabella personally and considered her a beautiful, charismatic young lady, reaffirming his faith in the justice system to hold the suspect accountable. It looks like this case is still very early in the legal process, and according to local reports, Vincent Badaloro is facing 2 first-degree murder charges along with more than a dozen traffic citations. And prosecutors have not yet said whether they will seek to move the murder charges from the juvenile family division to an adult court, which I think we can all agree he deserves to be charged as an adult. He does have a court appearance coming up on October 29th and has been scheduled to address the traffic summons tied to the crash. A separate set of hearings in family or criminal court would be required to handle the murder charges, and the Union County Prosecutor's Office has not announced those dates. Family members and many in the community are pushing for him to be tried as an adult, which would expose him to a potential 30-year to life sentence if convicted. Now, this next case is all over social media. If you're on TikTok, you've probably seen it. If you're on Facebook, you've probably seen it. For some reason, I haven't really seen it on other avenues like Instagram, but here I am to tell you about what is going on with the story of Laken Snelling. 21-year-old Laken hails from Morristown, Tennessee, which is a city of about 30,000 in the Appalachian region. Growing up, Laken was deeply involved in beauty pageants, even earning local pageant titles, and later co-founding a business to coach younger pageant competitors in pageant training, hair, and makeup. She was also an outstanding student athlete. After high school, Laken moved roughly 180 miles from Morristown to attend the University of Kentucky in Lexington. There, she thrived. She majored in interdisciplinary disability studies and excelled academically, making the Southeastern Conference Spring Academic Honor Roll in 2024. Laken was also a member of the UK's competitive stunt team, which is like a cheerleading-related sport. And in April of 2024, she and her teammates actually reached the championship round of the NCAA College Stunt National Finals. On a personal level, her life seemed full of promise. She turned 21 in January of 2025 and soon after began dating Connor Jordan, a former college basketball player from Tennessee. Their relationship grew serious over the spring. By Easter of 2025, she brought him home to meet her family, and in June, the couple even hired a professional photographer for a photo shoot together. And again, if you're watching, I'll be floating a lot of these pictures on the screen because by all outward appearances, Laken was poised to begin her senior year of college in the fall of 2025 with a supportive friend group and a bright future and this boyfriend. And in August of 2025, Laken lived off campus in Lexington in a house or apartment that she shared with some roommates. Classes for the fall semester began on August 26th, and Laken's stunt cheer squad had practices scheduled around that time. And it's unclear if she attended those early practices, but her roommates were already growing suspicious about Laken's condition. It turns out she had been concealing a pregnancy for months, and her roommates suspected that she might be pregnant even though she hadn't admitted it to them. So in these pictures that I'm going to show you, it very much appears that she has not just gained a little weight. She's got an obvious pregnant belly, and she's not admitting it to anyone. Her friends are suspicious. I mean, she hires this photo shoot, and it looks like they are maternity pictures. So Laken herself later claimed that she did not realize she was pregnant until possibly the day she gave birth. But police and prosecutors allege that she knew of her pregnancy and deliberately hid her growing belly from others. These stories where women claim to not know that they're pregnant until they give birth will never, ever make sense to me. I've been pregnant 4 times. I was very aware. How are you not aware? I don't know. I'm 5'9". I'm a tall girl. This girl is very short. How are you not aware? I can almost understand it if you're very tall and, you know, the pregnancy like sits kind of back, or maybe if you're already kind of curvy and so it's not completely obvious that there's a belly there. But like in this case, how did you not know? You knew. You knew. In any case, Snelling had not told family, friends, or her roommates about any pregnancy and outwardly continued her usual activities as a student as the fall semester kicked off. In fact, there's even pictures of her with her stunt team performing these dangerous stunts with her pregnant belly in her cheerleading uniform. Why is it always cheerleaders too, by the way? I don't understand that either. And I was a cheerleader, so I don't really like that. But in the early hours of August 27th, just one day after classes began, Laken Snelling secretly gave birth in her bedroom. According to court affidavits later obtained by news outlets, Laken went into labor around 4 a.m. on August 27th in her off-campus bedroom. The birth was sudden and likely unsupervised. She told investigators that the baby boy fell onto the floor of her bedroom during delivery. Laken said she remained awake with the newborn for about 30 minutes, but then passed out from either blood loss or exhaustion. In fact, she says that she collapsed on top of the baby after giving birth. When Laken awoke again sometime later, she found the infant unresponsive and, quote, turning blue and purple, which led her to believe that the baby had died. By Laken's account, the baby was not breathing, so she wrapped him in a towel like a burrito, quote unquote, and laid him next to her on the floor, saying that this gave her a little comfort in the moment. She also delivered the placenta and then placed the placenta in a Ziploc bag for disposal. After a short time lying next to the wrapped infant, Laken apparently fell asleep again. And around 7:30 a.m., her alarm clock woke her up, and at that point, believing the infant was lifeless, she took steps to hide any evidence of what had happened. She put the towel-wrapped baby and the bagged placenta together into a large black trash bag, which she then stowed inside of her closet in her room. Laken cleaned herself up and attempted to tidy up the blood in her room, and she later told police she even took a shower before dealing with the aftermath. By all indications, none of her roommates were aware at that moment that she had just delivered a child in their house. Despite her attempts to conceal the birth, her actions that morning raised red flags for her roommates. They reported hearing a loud thud or commotion around 4 a.m. coming from Laken's room, presumably when the baby fell to the floor or when Laken herself fainted. Later that morning, around 8 or 9 a.m., the roommates noticed Laken behaving oddly, and they confronted her about the early morning noise. She brushed off their concerns by claiming that she had passed out and fallen due to not having eaten, which she said explained the 4 a.m. disturbance. She told her roommates that she was going to see a doctor that morning for the fainting spell. Shortly thereafter, Laken left the house. She did not attend her 9:30 a.m. class. However, instead, she sat in her car and via a mobile app ordered breakfast from McDonald's, which she went to pick up. Then she drove to the University of Kentucky Student Health Clinic, but once she arrived, she just sat in the parking lot. She never actually went inside for medical care, and then she headed back home. Meanwhile, Laken's roommates grew increasingly alarmed, suspecting that she might have secretly given birth because their suspicions, perhaps heightened by her physical condition in the recent weeks, like they are seeing it and they can tell that she's pregnant. They don't know why she's not admitting it to them, but the roommates at that point entered her bedroom while she was out, and what they discovered was horrifying. On the floor was a blood-soaked towel, and nearby was the black plastic bag containing unmistakable evidence of childbirth. Looking inside the trash bag, one of the roommates found the infant's lifeless body wrapped in the towel and realized what had happened. The shocked roommates immediately dialed 911. In the recorded emergency call, the caller can be heard describing the baby as cold to the touch, indicating that the infant had no signs of life. At approximately 10:30 a.m. on August 27th, Laken returned to the apartment only to find police officers already on the scene. Lexington police responded to the 911 call, had arrived and discovered the newborn baby's body in the closet inside the trash bag as described by the roommates. Officers immediately took Laken into custody when she arrived home. The baby was then pronounced dead at the scene by responding medics. Once in custody, Laken was transported first to Lexington Police Headquarters for initial questioning and then to a hospital. Noticing Laken's physical state after childbirth, officers had brought her to the UK hospital when she requested to be medically checked out following her arrest. At the hospital, investigators interviewed her further about what had happened, and these interviews, described in search warrant affidavits later unsealed, provide much of the narrative that I outlined earlier regarding the birth and then Laken's actions after the fact. Notably, Laken gave somewhat inconsistent statements about the baby's condition at birth. She told police that she did not believe that the baby was alive or breathing when she awoke after the delivery. However, when speaking to medical staff at the hospital, Laken admitted hearing the baby make a whimper right after he was born, indicating that she guessed that he was alive. In fact, she says, quote, "I guessed it was alive," And that is a red flag to me, referring to the baby as it. We know that the baby was a boy. She also mentioned observing a little fetal movement from the newborn, according to the affidavits. And these details suggest that the infant may have been born full term and showed signs of life initially, a fact that could become crucial in determining potential charges. Investigators also obtained a search warrant to analyze her cell phone, uncovering evidence that she had planned to hide her pregnancy, and a forensic examination of her phone revealed internet search history and photos related to pregnancy. In the weeks and months leading up to August 27th, Laken's phone logged several searches about topics like how to conceal or hide a pregnancy. Even more disturbing, police recovered images that Laken took of herself while she was in labor that morning, presumably snapshots or videos in the midst of childbirth. According to the affidavit, she deleted those labor photos in an attempt to cover up what had happened. The deletion of those images, along with possibly other content, led investigators to believe that she had tried to destroy evidence of the pregnancy and birth on her device. And it's not clear if any messages to others or to the baby's father were found, but no such communications have been reported in public records. The physical evidence collected was very heartbreaking and telling. The infant boy was found wrapped in a towel inside the garbage bag, hidden in a closet, exactly as Laken described. The Fayette County coroner performed an autopsy on the newborn shortly after discovery, and on September 3rd, the coroner announced that the initial autopsy results were inconclusive as to the baby's exact cause of death. The infant was confirmed to be a full-term baby boy, but forensic examiners could not yet determine if he was born alive or how he died. The coroner indicated that additional microscopic analyses and testing were needed to establish the cause and manner of death. Now, upon her arrest, Laken was charged with 3 offenses under Kentucky law: abuse of a corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and concealing the birth of an infant. She was taken to the Fayette County Detention Center, and after being medically cleared, she remained jailed there for a few days. On September 2nd, she made her first court appearance, during which the formal charges were read. She pleaded not guilty to all 3 charges at that arraignment, and the judge set her bond at $100,000, which was subsequently posted. As a condition of her release, she was placed on strict house arrest. The court actually permitted her to leave Kentucky and return to her home state of Tennessee to reside with her family while awaiting further proceedings. And in a rather unusual arrangement, a judge approved a joint custody style provision between her divorced parents. So Laken must spend her days at her mom's home in Morristown, Tennessee, and then her nights at her dad's home in nearby Jefferson City, Tennessee. She is required to wear an ankle monitor and abide by other restrictions during this home confinement. And immediately after getting released, Laken also withdrew from the University of Kentucky, formally ending her enrollment as a student. Prosecutors have indicated that if the ongoing investigation, particularly the final autopsy results, shows that the baby was born alive and died due to criminal actions or neglect, that they could seek more serious charges such as manslaughter or murder. But until those results are in, the question of whether the baby was born alive, and if so, how he died, remains unanswered publicly. For now, Laken remains on house arrest in Tennessee, awaiting the grand jury's decision. She has been supported in court by several friends and former teammates. At her late September hearing, multiple UK classmates attended in a show of support for her, and her attorney has not made extensive public comments, but it's expected that her defense will argue whether she had knowledge of the pregnancy, which I think we can all agree she did, and whether the baby's death was a tragic stillbirth or an accident rather than a willful act. So whatever ends up happening in this case, I will keep you updated. I am following this case closely, and so are some of my friends. So I'm sure that we will keep you up to date on what ends up happening. Now, our last story is one I want to hear from you on. There is a missing mom from Indiana who has been found alive after her home was set on fire and she was missing for 8 days. Britney Gard is a 46-year-old mother of 2 from Bainbridge, Indiana, a small community about 40 miles west of Indianapolis. Family described Britney as a devoted, loving mom and her kids' biggest cheerleader, deeply involved in her children's lives. On social media, she often posted about her daughter's volleyball games and referred to herself as a digital creator by profession. Originally a native of Marshall, Illinois, Britney had settled in rural Putnam County with her family. So here is a timeline of events as we know it. September 30th was a Tuesday, and Britney was last seen by family in the evening. In fact, her last known contact was around 9:24 p.m. that night, after which nobody heard from her again. Nothing appeared amiss at that time, but by the next day, October 1st, which was Wednesday, at approximately 7:40 p.m., a 911 call reported smoke coming from Britney's home. Firefighters arrived and extinguished a blaze that had burned a portion of the house, but strangely, Britney was nowhere to be found at the scene. Her vehicle was parked at the home, and her purse with her phone and some other belongings were also left behind, but Britney herself was gone. She also did not show up to her daughter's volleyball game, which was very out of character for her. Investigators quickly deemed the fire suspicious in nature, indicating that it may have been deliberately set. That same night, police launched a search of the property and surrounding areas, but turned up no sign of Britney. They initially put out this search with drones, with thermal imaging, so the fact that she was found close to home makes you wonder how that was missed, and I'll get to that point. But family and friends' attempts to reach her phone went unanswered. And then between October 2nd and October 7th, a massive search effort unfolded. Dozens of volunteers, along with multiple agencies, scoured the rural area for any trace of Britney. Britney's sisters and other relatives led community searches through cornfields, woods, and around a pond on her property. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office coordinated with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources to have divers check ponds, and they deployed drones nightly to canvass the fields and forests from above. By Monday of that week, large search parties were organized. Volunteers were taping missing persons flyers across town, even on pizza boxes, and urged anyone with security cameras to review their footage for any potential clues. Local authorities also enlisted the help from state and federal partners. Detectives worked around the clock, and even the FBI assisted by tracking electronic devices for any hint of Britney's whereabouts. Throughout this period, there was no contact from Britney. Her family created a Facebook page called Find Britney Gard to spread awareness and updates about the case. The situation was treated as a missing endangered persons case, given the bizarre circumstances and, of course, the fire. And then yesterday was Wednesday, October 8th, and after a full week of mystery, an astonishing break came when Britney Gard was found alive. On Wednesday evening, the Putnam County Sheriff announced that she had been safely located in a wooded area about 2.5 miles from her home. She was conscious and was immediately taken to Hendricks Regional Health Hospital in Danville for medical evaluation. Britney had been missing for roughly 8 days in total, and the primary question on everyone's mind was what exactly happened to her during that time. Authorities haven't publicly disclosed how Britney was located in that wooded area 2.5 miles away, whether a search team stumbled upon her or she managed to signal for help. But they did confirm that she was alive and physically mostly okay, aside from being taken for a medical check. Notably, she was found inside a densely wooded spot relatively close to her home. And this raises many questions. Had she been there the entire time? Did she wander there on her own, or was she left there by someone? Police have not said. They simply announced that she was found and that the investigation into what happened was ongoing. Something about this story feels fishy, though. How does someone just go missing these days? It does not make any sense. From the family's perspective, Britney's sudden vanishing was utterly out of character. She's a dedicated mom who would never willingly miss her child's volleyball game or leave her 2 kids without explanation. Then again, they said the exact same thing about Sherry Papini. Now, in fact, relatives were adamant on social media that this was definitely not a runaway situation. They firmly believe some outside force or person was involved in Britney's week-long disappearance. Adding to the suspicion is the house fire. Fire investigators quickly concluded the blaze at Britney's home was suspicious in nature, meaning someone may have intentionally set it rather than it just being an accident. Now, fortunately, the fire damage was confined to one part of the house and was put out before the whole home was destroyed, but still, the timing is very alarming because the very next evening after Britney was last seen, her house goes up in flames while she's missing. That coincidence has led many to suspect foul play. Was someone trying to cover their tracks? Did Britney flee the house because of the fire or because of a threat? Or did someone set the fire after harming or abducting her? Or did she set the fire as a ruse for her own disappearance, her own runaway? These are questions that investigators are undoubtedly exploring, but no answers have been made public yet. The lack of immediate answers, even after Britney's safe return, has fueled a lot of community chatter and online speculation. Law enforcement has so far kept details pretty tight, saying only that it's unclear how she ended up in the woods and that the situation is under active investigation. Now, one theory, which the family strongly denies, is that Britney may have staged her own disappearance or run off for personal reasons. A few social media users pointed to other cases, like a recent one involving a man faking his death in a kayak. I believe Carly Russell was the girl from the South, I think it was Tennessee, that faked her own abduction and then was found in a nearby Red Roof Inn, like eating Cheez-Its and doing her hair or something. And then, of course, we have Sherry Papini, and then a story I just talked about 10 minutes ago of the boy in Florida faking his own abduction. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this could be the case. However, doing something so drastic, like leaving her kids and then torching her own house, would be extremely out of character by all accounts. By those who loved her. Loved ones flatly reject the idea that Britney vanished on purpose, and there's no evidence so far to suggest that she did. Others have speculated about a possible medical or psychological crisis. For example, could Britney have suffered a head injury or mental health episode that caused her to become disoriented and then go out and hide in the woods? If she had a breakdown, one might imagine her wandering off, but that still doesn't explain the fire, which clearly appears deliberate and thus more likely linked to a criminal act. And then, of course, there's also the question of how she survived 8 days outside. Was she injured or just hiding? Did she have any supplies, or was she without food and shelter that entire time? Authorities have not disclosed her condition when she was found. Other than that, she went to the hospital, and if she endured exposure for over a week, she may have been dehydrated or weak, but we just don't know those details yet. As details come out on this story, I will be sure to update you, likely next week in our weekly docket series. I hope you'll join me again for that episode, and I will see you next week for another baffling case. We're going to talk about the case of Megan Trussell. I had the privilege of meeting Megan's mom, Vanessa, at CrimeCon just last month, and the story of her daughter is troubling, it's heartbreaking, and it's equally infuriating. So I hope that you will stick around for that episode, and then I will see you again for the weekly docket on Friday. Until then, have a great weekend. Stay curious, stay vigilant. Mama Mystery out.